Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome back to the Mixing in a Home Music Studio course. In this video, we're going to talk about mixing drums. So firstly, if you're new to the channel and new to my videos and you like what you see, click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. So mixing the drums. So obviously, as I said, we're going to mix our drums now. We're going to get into the actual mixing, right? We're going to start mixing it out. Now we're going to focus on the basic elements first, like getting our volumes in there, doing our EQs, maybe some compression, that sort of stuff, filters, all those sort of ideas that we've talked about in the theory section, we're going to have a look at now and apply. We're going to come back later and start doing effects and all that sort of stuff, unless there's something critical we need to do now. Mostly it's going to be about getting our basics down and getting them all sounding great first. So we're going to get into that and check it out. Now, again, or I don't know if I've said this before, but depending on the song, depends on what order I mix the instruments in. Now, for this course, I clearly had to define an order, and I just picked an order that I most likely use when I mix a song. Especially a client song, I will usually start with the drums and I'll work through this process, but depending on the song, that may not be the case. It may not be most appropriate to mix the drums first. So just keep that in mind, that I've done this specifically for this course in this order because it just seemed to make sense and it makes the course sort of flow, right? But there might be times, and it may happen in this course, where even if I teach in this order, I may have mixed in a different order, right? I may have chucked in different instruments first. I may do the guitars first. I may do the bass first. I may do the keyboards first, right? So I adapt it to the song in particular. But for the course, obviously I had to have a logical layout. So keep that in mind as this, right? This is not the way you have to mix. You do not have to mix in this order. Even the techniques I show in this video, you do not have to do them all. You do not have to follow them step by step. Adapt it to your song, adapt it to your software, adapt it to your workflow. But anyway, let's get into it and I'll show you what I do. All right, so what I'm going to do now in this part is I'm going to mix each part individually. So I'm going to start now with the drums, and we're obviously going to have to try and mix them together, you know, they're not necessarily individual components, but to show the process, I'm going to sort of do the mixing part, each individual part. And there's going to be things here that I'm going to try and keep this as real as possible for this song, but I may do some things in here just for the sake of the course to show you examples. They may not necessarily be really required on this song, but I'm going to show you the important stuff. But I'm not going to go too over the top. I'm going to try and keep it as fairly real as possible to what I would do in the mix. And as I said, I'm going to be just using the stock stuff that comes with Cubase Pro. So we're going to just try and focus on that and to get the best sound that we can out of this. And then I'll have another mix again that we'll do with other plugins and that sort of stuff later on. Now we could solo the entire drums one of two ways. We could do it from the bus level. We could do it through the folder. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Now these are sampled drums, so they're pretty clean as is, but I still want to do some processing on here just to make sure that it is really clean and the way just the way I would do it as such. So what I'm going to start with, my first process probably is going to be doing some filtering. Now, normally I'm used to doing this with plugins, so I'm possibly going to look a little bit clumsy and trying to work things out here because I don't. I have my methods, I have my template, and I'm used to using that. I'm not used to using all the stock stuff here. So this is going to be a bit of a learning curve for me in using the stock plugins, but it's going to be interesting and I think I'll enjoy it. So we can start there. Now we could do it from the mix window here. I would have no idea really how to change the settings in here and that sort of stuff. That's going to be very complicated. We can do it from the strip level, right? But it's very small. Now we could come across here as well. And let me just shrink that. Get rid of that. Okay. So we can open it up from this point of view here, but what I'd like to do in this case, because I'm going to be using that and not using plugins, normally I'd be here using the plugins. I'm going to stick in this window, right? And we can switch over to the inspector over here as well. So we can do it in this section. There's lots of places we can make these adjustments. So what we might do is unsolo that and just solo the overheads, right? Let's start with the overheads. And what I'll generally start to do is probably put some filters on, all right? So, what do I want the overheads to do? But let's find a... Okay, this overhead literally is just overheads. Usually this would be an entire kit. All right, so what I'd start with is probably some filters. So we might turn a filter on. Just that. Now we don't really have any low end, so we can clean this up a bit. Get rid of some mud, that sort of thing. Now what we can also do is listen out if there's anything that's sort of muddy or annoying. Sometimes you can get that sort of boxy sound there in the 500. You might want to dip that out a bit. This case here, might decide to brighten it up a little bit. So basically here I'm combining two functions. I'm doing a bit of filtering and I'm doing a bit of the EQ itself. Now, the other thing we should check is for sort of phase here. Now, there's a good chance that being sampled drums, we're not going to have a problem with phase here. But if these were real recorded drums, multi-mics, that sort of stuff, we could have a problem with the phase. So what I might do is bring the kick in and do the same thing. And what I'll do this time is I'll switch the phase of the kick. And we'll see if we hear a difference. Now the thing is with this one, there's a good chance there's not, because we don't actually have any bleed. As you could hear from this overhead, there's actually no kick in there. So there's really... and I guess that's one advantage of sampled drums. These ones here have got no bleed at all. Sometimes they have bleed in it, but in this case they don't. Okay, but where they may not they will have bleed, they will have bleed. Let's just check the hats. Yeah, see nothing in there, but obviously the room. So we can hear there. Now, if I go to the kick, very subtle in this case because the room is not a major factor in this. I do hear a little bit of a difference if I change the phase on that. What about on the snare? Yeah, it's not really having an impact, but it would be in phase anyway. And we could manually check it by zooming in, as I've shown before with phase. But in this case here, there's really not going to be an issue. The room is not having an impact. It's generally going to be with overheads or if you've got multi-mic'd kick or snare. But in this case here, we haven't got that. So we're pretty good to just stick with that. So, okay, so we've got the overheads. Let's just go through a bit an EQ. So with the kick here, we could, you could filter some of the low end if you want to get rid of the real low subs. Make sure it's nothing nasty there. But you don't want to go up too high because obviously you can see the fundamentals here. It's actually quite a low kick. We could take some of the high end away if we want to make sure there's nothing. Okay, but that sounds a bit dull now. We don't want to go too low. And again, we could sweep. If you don't like a sound in there, if there's a bad frequency. But what we can also do is we can sort of enhance the fundamental here. And if you want it more clicky, you could boost the sort of click sound there. We could bypass it and bring it back in. Okay, now if I just switch tracks, we'll instantly go to the next one. So again, we can clean up the low end a bit. We can see the fundamental here is about 185 hertz. Now, if you go too high, you can hear how thin that sounds. So if you're just wanting to filter out rumble and noise, what you want to do is bring your filter up till you hear it sound like it's had an impact, and then take it back down a little bit just below that. Now you could take a little bit off the top. Now the other thing that's quite common with snares is sometimes you'll get a ringing sound that you might want to clean up. Yeah, that ring there. Now this is a pretty good one actually. I'm not really hearing. But we can also boost the fundamental if we wanted to make it sound a bit thicker. If you like a thicker sound. Or boost the lower component of it. There's a little bit of a ring. Can't Comes out every now and then. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's just close that for the minute. Stop this. Now, toms is a little bit harder because obviously they only hit in certain points. So it can be sort of hard to dial them in a little bit. So one thing I do like to do with toms is find the fundamental. So it's about there. Well, it's in that ballpark there. I like to filter out most of the low before it. And then we can take away some of the top. But then what we can do is actually boost. And what we can do is switch this to a parametric. Boost some of the top as well. Just find a nice spot. And then you could dip the mid, because you can hear that sort of sound there. You might, sometimes I don't like that. And you can make it wider. Okay, so let's go to that. Now, there's another thing we can do here is we can actually copy. There's a way, let me think. We can actually copy the input filter setting here, right? So I could say copy that, go down to our other tom, and I can paste, and it will automatically put it in, right? But we can just turn it off for a second. But then you can also copy your EQ settings. And then what you do is paste them and just adjust. So we might go lower here. And then we can go down to the fourth. We can do the same thing. We'll start with the EQ this time. Now you can see the fundamentals down here now. So we can go back and copy our filter, paste the filter. Now we'll have to adjust this one because we want to go quite a bit lower with that one. And we could actually go probably. Now, sometimes the advantage of this, cleaning some of these EQs out, means that we could get them louder and more impactful into our song. Now, hi-hats here. Let's go back to that. Got a spot with a loud hi-hat. Okay. Okay, so processing-wise with hi-hats, I don't usually do a great deal. Just take some of the low out. I wouldn't take any highs out, and what I might do is just do a bit of a boost. Just brighten that up a bit. Simple as that. Now, a room, that's another interesting one because sometimes our room can sound a bit muddy. So we might want to clean up the low end a little bit. Sometimes it's even quite common to dull the top end because the cymbals in the room can sometimes not sound the greatest. Generally, I look for mud in these. So sort of taking away a bit of a boxy sound and a little bit of the mud low end sort of range there. Not low, but sort of mid low. Now that low end had a bit of a boom there. So you might want to just take a little bit of that out. Okay, so then we can bring it all in. Not sure if there's a quick way. I think if we Q-link. No, that didn't work. Let's do that. Okay, so that Q-link off. Right, so this is before the EQ and the filters. And after. Before. And after. It's a little bit brighter, a little bit cleaner, not so muddy. And boxy. I can hear boxy sound when I turn the EQ off. Just sounds a lot nicer to me, a lot sweeter. All right, so that's filters and EQs on our drums. Now we may come back and adjust these as we get through the mix because this is all by itself at the moment. One thing we haven't done is the electronic drums. So let's have a look at those. So let's go and solo each one. Okay, it's an interesting sound. I don't know what that little... It's like actually there's a resonant hum there. It's like a 50 cycle hum or something there by the look of it. Now, generally with some of these electronic ones, I wouldn't bother adjusting too much at all. I'll probably just filter it because usually you've dialed in the sounds you want. And you may not want to change it at all. See, there's definitely a cycle. You know, you might not filter. You could just brighten things up a bit. Now, in this case here, you may just want to leave all that real low thump in there. Now, you can see there's nothing here, but this is more of a cautionary thing. It's just like, well, I'll do it just in case. So, you know, you could adjust the sound of this. You could give it way more thump if you wanted. But you could also cut the real low end off. I mean, not cut it, but you're filtering a little bit. It doesn't get rid of it entirely. And it all depends on the sound you're going for, obviously. So again, I'm going to filter that out. We don't need any of that. And we might brighten that up a little. We could add a little bit more of the fundamental thickness there. All right, so let's now solo the drums again. Let's have a look at or listen to our electronic drums with the EQ on and off. So we'll just select the lot, turn it all off. All right, this is our electronic now, EQ off. Oh, it's pretty subtle. I didn't make much change there, but that's fine. I didn't really want to. You can hear the kick sounds a bit different. Right, so I'm just going to save that. Pretty happy with that. Okay, so now we could look at, you know, things like compression or anything like that. So we might want to say start with a kick here. Now, what's the best place to do compression in this thing here? Okay, so in the Steinberg realm here, we've got a few options. What have we got? We've got multi-band compressor, we've got tube compressor, vintage compressor, and a standard compressor. Okay, so which do we want to go for? Let's check out the vintage compressor. And let's just try the kick. I need to find the section. Okay, so in this one here, we basically need to turn the input up to get compressing going. So we could set a level here. Let's go. I'm going to stick 2 to 1 actually. Attack mode. We'll slow it down a little bit. I don't want to take away the transients. Okay, here's our gain reduction here. Now we want to turn our output down. I want to balance the level, but let's get it right first. Now, to get the effect here, if I overcompress, you can hear the click disappears when I go too fast with the attack. So I don't want to lose that thump. Now, the shorter I take the release, the more the room sound sort of comes up in the back. Now, I don't want to compress that much. 3 to 1 would be the most. Trying to keep the level the same. That's why I'm balancing the input and output. Might go a bit more. Don't know. Oh, that's an auto release. I thought there might have been an auto gain, but there isn't. That's a bit much. Okay, so that might keep it sort of more in track there. Now, what we could do is if I go over to F3 and inserts, we might decide that, okay, to keep this drum sound pretty consistent, how about we copy that compressor over to all our drum tracks, and doing that by holding Alt and dragging. We will adjust each one, so don't worry. Might leave the electronic ones at the moment because I'm thinking we might put a tube compressor or something on that to take a little bit of that digital rawness away and see what we get out of that. Okay, but let's now go to our overheads. You know what? I'm probably going to actually take that off. I'm not a big fan of compressing cymbals too much. So I'm going to take that one off. I'm not going to bother with that. Snare, that's a different story. See how dull that sounds when you go too fast with the attack? Okay, and toms now. We've got to get a tom hit here. Again, this is the tricky part, trying to get a tom hit. That's just going to try and level it out a little bit. That's probably a bit much. And a lucky last. Okay, let's go over to the hats again. I'm just going to take that off because I'm not going to compress the hats. Now the room, that's a different thing here again. Sometimes I will actually compress the room quite a lot. Because what I'm looking for is I'm wanting the room sound. That's the main element I want out of this. You can hear how much more reverb sounding it is. We'll go with that for now. It may not be exactly what we want, but we'll see. Okay, so again, let's go with the middle here. Okay, so this time we can actually bypass and unbypass the insets. Oops. What the? Okay, so this is what we've got before the compressor. Okay, we are losing something here I'm not happy with. Okay, I think it is the room compressor. I think I went a bit too heavy with the attack. Could probably change the mix as well. Okay, so before. Okay, we'll see how that goes in the mix. It's not too bad. Some of these may not even need to be compressed, right? Because they are samples, they can be pretty good, you know, and they're already compressed when they create the samples, that sort of stuff. All right, let's get over to the electronic. Okay, so what I was talking about with these ones here, actually, let's start with the kick. So if we go with a tube compressor, let's check what happens with this. Okay, let's turn the solo off. So we've got a few factors here. Right? We want to turn the attack down, that's for sure. 100% mix. Okay, that sounds pretty good to me. It's not a big sort of tube sound or anything like that. I'm not hearing massive difference there. But let's copy it over. Actually, in this case here, I will put it on all of them, but we'll just lower our compression on them. So let's go straight over to the snare. Okay, let's try the hat. So let's kind of lower the output. Actually, it's not actually that bad. Let's go with a closed. And then the clap. All right, so let's now try that. It's going to be subtle, I think. It may not be. We'll find out. Select all those again. Let's bypass that. Actually, it almost sounds a bit tighter and even a little brighter. Okay, well, I'm pretty happy with that. For now, this is obviously all in isolation, so, you can only take it as you want there. Okay, so now the other thing I might do in this case here, and again, this would come in more when we're looking at the overall mix, but I might like to add in here some parallel compression. Probably not for the electronic drums at this stage, mainly for the real drums. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a track, and it's going to be an effects track. And what I can do is straight away, I could go in here and pick a compressor. So in this case here, I'm going to go with the vintage compressor. It's going to be stereo, and it's going to go out to the drum bus. I'm going to create inside that folder, and I'm going to call it P drums. Where that? Okay, that's all right. I find that a little annoying that inside the folder means it creates it inside an effects channel folder. I actually want it inside my drums folder, and then I'll give it its color. So it's the same as the drums. I'm just going to close that for a minute. We're just going to check our routing here. All right, so we'll solo that as well. So it's in. So it's going to the drum bus. We've got the compressor on it here. Okay, and at the moment, it'll do nothing because there's no audio going to it. But what we're going to do is we're now going to go to our sends. We can either do it from here or we could do it from the channel setting here. And I'm going to set up a send to go to that P drums. All right, and I'm going to do that not on all the tracks because I don't really like this effect on my cymbals and hats, but I do like it on all of my other drums here. That's hat, and I'm not going to send room either. So we're just going to send our close mics. And what I want to do is I want to set it to 0. So I'm going to send the full signal of all of these drums into this channel here. Okay, so we need to turn it on. All right, so now we should see audio come in here. I'll just turn it down. Sorry, we will see it when I pick a spot. So you can see audio is coming here now. Now if I go listen, you're still hearing these tracks in the background. So listen isn't totally solo. Now that is set to pretty sure I usually have it that way. Let me just check which one that is. So oh, that's actually pre-fader. Let's try that again. Yep, okay. So I'll switch it back to the other way. No, it's not pre-fader, sorry, post-fader. That's actually post-fader. So the fader is going to adjust what's coming in here, which is fine. That's what I want. I want it to be adjusted to suit this. So we're listening mainly to this compressor here. Now we should see, now if I just put that to 0, now this fader will have no impact on this compressor. So I'm going to compress it really hard. Okay, so that compressor itself is not adding, I mean, it's adding a lot of compression, but I'm wanting to add something else here. And I'm thinking, I want to add a touch of distortion. Could go to tube. See what that does. Okay, it's just adding a little bit of extra life to the sound there. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take the listen off. I'm going to drop that fader right down to 0. All right. And so what this means is that we're not hearing any of this parallel compression here. So it's what we had before with the drums, right? No change. Now, generally in the whole mix, I could then listen to it and I could bring this up and make a decision of, do I want more? So you can go as high as you want. Or nothing. And then I could do an easy before and after by just muting it. Now, depending how much you had in, it might not be so obvious in solo here, but when you put it in the mix, it can sort of bring the drums just a little bit further forward, out a little bit, just add that little bit of extra enhancement that you need to get it to stand out. So I'll leave it in there like that at the moment, but we may tweak that later. Okay, so, if I was using my template, I may add some reverb now or something like that. We're going to leave that till later, though. I'm going to keep this fairly dry right now. Just concentrate on this basic sort of EQ compression type structure. But what we can do is now we could go across to our drum bus and we could actually put some parallel processing on the drum bus. Now, what do we want to put on that? That's entirely up to you and what you're looking for. So what I might do, I might put some tube effect. And no, I won't, because that sounds horrible. Okay, let's skip that. I didn't like the sound of that at all. Okay, but we might put some more compression. So what if we go with some tube compression? Now, I want to keep this really subtle. So we're just sort of moving the cat meter there. Again, I'm going to slow this attack down a bit. Let's bring that up. Let's put the mix on full. So you can hear that's adding a little bit extra life again, and we're starting to glue the drum kit together as well by passing it all through the one compressor. Now, the other thing we could do is we might say, okay, what else do we have here in the way of tools? I thought there might be something. We don't want to process it too much. That's the only thing. I thought there might be something we could do to just a little bit of enhancement, but a bit sort of limited when it comes to our tools internally. Yeah, I think I'll skip that. But what we might do is we could come into the EQ. And again, you might want to just do a little filter on the end there. And we could do some EQ changes here. Just tidy things up a little bit. I want to add a little bit of brightness to the top. You could add a little bit of low end. All right, so again, now let's have a listen to this. I'll turn these two on and off. This is before. Compressor. EQ. All right, so that's sounding pretty good to me. I'm pretty happy with the drums. As I said, we may add some effects later, a little bit of reverb, that sort of thing, just to tie things in together, but we'll look at that later. So there you go. That is how I have mixed my drums to start with. It may adapt over time as we get through the mix. That does happen, right? What I do right this second is not always what it will end up be. We will adapt it when we reference, we'll adapt it when we blend it in with other instruments, all that sort of stuff, right? Things are going to change through the mix. It's not a static, mix this instrument, never touch it again. It's not the way we do it in mixing, right? We go backwards and forwards. We keep doing things, we keep tweaking things, changing things, all that sort of stuff. So let me know what you thought of the video in the comments. If you do have any questions, again, feel free to put them in the comments. I will attempt to answer every comment. I read them all, and hopefully I'll do it as quick as I possibly can. I want this to be as interactive as possible, and I want to help you progress as much as I possibly can. And sometimes I'm not always very clear. I'm obviously going to go through these mixes fairly quickly. They're going to be what suits my song, but they may not obviously suit your song, right? So there may be some things that you need clarified for your song or stuff like that. Obviously I can't listen to your song, so I can't give you every single detail, but hopefully I can guide you or give you some general advice or that sort of stuff. So if you do have questions, put them in the comments. If you did like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.